Hi, everyone, and welcome. In today's card project, I'm going to be creating this sweet little scene by coloring in my kittens with my OLO alcohol markers and pairing them with a previously released product. If you're interested in any of the supplies I'm using today, I will have them linked down below in the video description and over on my blog. This is a quick look at the stamp set that I'm going to be creating with today. I have 3 kittens that I plan on featuring, and I knew I wanted to pair them with this image from the Cupcakes and More die set. I have really been wanting to use this, and I thought it would be really cute to have this milkshake kind of surrounded by these kittens. So here's a look at the layering guide, and I'm going to do that milkshake that has all the fun sprinkles on it and the straw sticking out. Now, I am pretty much using the guide or using that guide as inspiration for my milkshake. So I did the 2 different shades of pink cardstock for the glass and then the different shades for the topping. So the base piece is going to be with like a kind of cream colored cardstock, and that top part was done out of like a shimmer cardstock from Spellbinders. So I really loved this color combination. I also have that teal colored straw, and then I did some cherries and sprinkles and the stars. Now, the cherries, I did die cut out. There's a couple of them, I think, on that die set. I did one in a dark red, I did another one in a light red. There is a small die on there to do the stems. And then we have the sprinkles I did in a chocolate covered or chocolate colored cardstock and these stars out of yellow. And again, I just used their layering guide as a guide for me to place my sprinkles on. Since the die set does already provide kind of some shading to it just by using those 2 different colors of cardstock, I didn't do any ink blending or shading to this. I love how this came out, and any of the images off of that die set would be really cute for this. The cupcake, I think, would be really cute too. So, my idea was to have a couple of these kittens kind of surrounding the milkshake like they want to get into it, and then also one kind of peeking out. So I picked out those 3 kittens and I'm going to ink them up in the Honeybee Stamps Intense Black ink, which is safe to use with alcohol markers. And I'm stamping them on an 80-pound white cardstock. I did condition the stamp a little bit with just by rubbing my hand over it because it is a brand new stamp. I haven't used it yet, but I am going to still stamp it twice because the first time I just kind of did a gentle press. I'd rather go gentle and stamp it multiple times versus stamping too hard the first time. I'm going to color in my images using my OLO markers, which is an alcohol marker. Now, this one I kept at just 2 times the speed, but since I'm using the same colors and kind of the same format for coloring, I am going to speed up the coloring on the other 2 kittens. Now, the colors that I'm using for the OLOs is W7, W5, W3, and W1. So I started by placing out my shadows. And when I look at shadows on my critters, I kind of take a look at the image and figure out which direction they're facing. For instance, this cat is facing to the right. So I'm going to try and put my shadows more towards the left hand side. So his backside will have a little bit more of a shadow. Kind of underneath his arms are going to have a shadow area. So that's going to be my darkest color. And then for the head, I'm starting out, I meant to start with W7. I come back in with it, but I just grabbed the wrong marker at first. But I'm going to put my shadow area on that furthest left-hand side and then just start blending out with the remaining markers. I didn't want my cat to be too dark, so I do want to try and come in with that W3 and W1 more than anything. I've seen a lot of different fun ways to color the cats in just a variety of colors or adding stripes and spots to them. I will admit I'm not very good at that. So I just keep mine in this plain color. Now, this one, I just didn't add any coloring to the paws so that it kind of looked like they have cute little white paws on them. And as I start moving to the other kitty here, that is going to be almost like jumping up towards the milkshake. Now, since his face or her face is facing to the left, I'm going to put my darkest color on the right hand side. And again, just blending out with the remaining colors. Now, it probably would be pretty easy for me to add some stripes, maybe. But again, it's just something I struggle with. I haven't really practiced a lot adding the different stripes and spots and things like that to the cats. So I just stick with what I know for right now. And maybe someday I'll sit down and actually kind of just stamp out the same cat numerous times And then that way I have a few different images to work with and I can kind of color and experiment with and maybe just put that in a book somewhere. I should probably start that where I can list out the color combinations that I've used, the different ways of coloring in critters. I've seen some people do that with their coloring, and I think it's a really great resource. Now, once I finished coloring in my kitties in kind of that warm gray, I'm going to come in with some, it's actually a red. The R stands for red on the Olo marker, but it's kind of like a pink. So I have R 5.3 and R 5.1. And I'm also going to take that 5.3, which is the darker shade, and add little dots right where their whiskers are. So it kind of looks like cute little pink cheeks. I lined up the coordinating dies for each of them, held them down with the Spellbinder's Best Ever Craft tape, and ran those through my die cut machine. I also cut two of the cats twice from just a plain white cardstock, and I'll layer them together. I like to add stability behind my images. I just didn't do it with the cat that is peeking, because if you notice there up in the top right hand screen where he's sitting right now, die cut out, he has a little tab underneath him. And I really didn't want to layer that together because his paws kind of come out so I can put them over my milkshake glass. So I didn't double layer that cat. I added a little bit of liquid glue to him so I could glue him down there. And then I'm going to trim off any cardstock that's remaining. So you can see underneath my milkshake glass, that tab was sticking out. And I'm just going to trim that off. And he fit perfectly peeking around the bottom of my milkshake. For a background for this card, I'm going to go with some teals. I thought that would kind of match nicely with the pinks and also my straw. I'm going to be using inks from Pink Fresh Studio. This first color I'm using is Waterfall Ink, and I'll go about maybe halfway or three-quarters of the way up, having it fade off into the weight of the cardstock. And then I'm going to come in with turquoise ink, darken up that bottom, and then have that fade off about a quarter of the way up. And I need to kind of create some grounding in a sense for my milkshake and my cats. And then once I'm happy with that background, which I absolutely am, I think that turned out really good. I am going to add splatters of white paint to the entire background. And then I'm also going to bring in Distress Spritz in Peacock Feathers. So this has that Peacock Feathers color to it, but it's a shiny, glimmery type of mix. And I'm adding that to the background as well. You want to make sure you shake those bottles up really good though. So I will have a little bit of shimmer and sparkle to my background. The sentiment I'm using is also off of the Meow and Forever stamp set. You could see I was just rubbing my hand over that to condition it a little bit. It'll take ink a little bit better, helps remove any residue that might be left on there from the manufacturing process. And then I'm going to stamp it again onto white cardstock using the black ink from Honeybee Stamps. I die cut that out with the coordinating die and also another extra piece to layer that together once again. I think this one I actually layered together with two extra pieces of cardstock. I could also add some foam tape behind it, but I do like having that stability behind it. So now I am just getting the feel of my layout and how I wanted everything to be on the front of the card. I did go ahead and attach my background to a side folding card base. My milkshake is getting added with the liquid glue, and I'm also going to be adding the cats with the liquid glue as well. I thought about popping them up a little bit, but I just I thought it looked nice the way it was, especially since I already have a layer of cardstock behind it. So these guys are going to get added with that liquid glue as well, kind of staggering them on each side. And even though I don't necessarily have a ground for them, still think having that darker shade towards the bottom of the cardstock works really well as a grounding point. And the same will go for the sentiment. I am just adding that with the liquid glue. Since I did layer that together a couple times, it does have a little bit of dimension to it. Now, I still wanted to add a little bit of something to this. So I am taking the Glossy Accents and I'm putting that over all of the stars. Then I'm going to sprinkle on the rock candy. So this is a very, very fine glitter. Tap off any of the excess and I'll let that dry. And I still felt like I needed to add just a little bit of extra something. So I'm bringing in a white gel pen and I'm going to add some just cutesy little highlights to my kittens. And I love how this came out. I think it's super cute to take these kittens and just place them in other scenes other than what they were designed for. I hope you enjoyed today's card inspiration. I will have all of my supplies used linked down below in the video description and over on my blog. Thank you all so much for joining me today.